Westfield Memorial Hospital provides high-quality health care to residents of Western New York, offering patients the most sophisticated medical advancements while keeping the ease and familiarity of a community hospital. Support for Chautauqua Sunrise has been provided by WRFA 107.9 FM, Jamestown's public radio station, streaming online 24/7 at WRFALP.com. Low power to the people. Chautauqua Sunrise is made possible by a grant from Fredonia Place, a continuing care retirement community providing dignity in a modern luxury environment. Meter's Restaurant, a family tradition for over 50 years in downtown Ripley, is a proud supporter of Chautauqua Sunrise. Meter's provides all-day dining, banquet services, and custom catering, specializing in pie. Funding for Chautauqua Sunrise is provided in part by the Chautauqua County Industrial Development Agency, with offices in Jamestown, Dunkirk, and Westfield, helping businesses to prosper throughout Chautauqua County.
The Chautauqua Center.
Are you looking for affordable medical, dental, or counseling services? The Chautauqua Center is always accepting new patients at their Jamestown and Dunkirk locations. They offer discounted prescriptions and accept all insurances. From the Access Chautauqua Studios in Mayville, it's Chautauqua Sunrise. Chautauqua Sunrise is hosted by Doc Hamels and supported by the award-winning volunteers at Access Chautauqua. We are here to share local news, colorful interviews, and events of interest to everyone. Chautauqua Sunrise is broadcast live Saturday mornings each week from 9 to 10 a.m. Send events via email or call us live. Check us out on YouTube and Facebook. And now, from the Access Chautauqua Studios, it's Chautauqua Sunrise.
Morning, everybody. I'm Doc Hamels, and welcome to Chautauqua Sunrise. Happy Saturday to everybody. Well, we've had our 3 seasons again this week, haven't we? Fall, spring, winter. No summer, though. But, we had a doozy of snowfall up at our house. I guess it was Tuesday, about a half a foot of snow. Wowza. I actually had to get the tractor out and do some work for a change. Then the snow, of course, came off the roof, and now my wife says I got to move that. So it's never ending, isn't it? Oh, well. We want to welcome everybody here around the world that are watching us on our streaming, wherever you are. And a special hi to Cor in the Netherlands, or Holland, however you look at it. Hey, Cor, thanks for watching. He checks in just about every week. And people always say, you really stream around the world? And people watch. I go, yeah. Why? I'm not sure, but we're so happy you do. And I wish I had an answer to that question, but Turkey, Burma, Thailand, the Philippines, England, and the Netherlands, and then, of course, across the United States, we've had people watching the show. So I'm glad you could join us, and it's a lot of fun, especially if you check the like and or leave us a little note. It's always a lot of fun for us to know where you're from, and we track things on the map behind me here. Okay, well, we're in the throes of the holiday season. Hope everybody's holding up. And with that thought, we have a special program today. It's going to talk a little bit about the stressors of life around the holidays and some of the pitfalls that people may find themselves in, or people we know. So, interesting show. I want you to stay tuned for that. Along with all that, since it is a live call-in show, you can give us a call at 716-753-5225. You can Twitter us, tweet us, I guess that's the same thing. Email us, call in on the phone and leave a message, or you can talk to me directly. Randy answers the phone. He'll take a message. If you don't, and you're really kind of shy, you don't have to be, because we're pretty friendly here. If you have a club, an organization, something that you want us to feature on the show, we're happy to talk about it. This show is public access. It's all for you. It's all about Chautauqua County and the really cool things here. Also, I want to say good afternoon to all of my listeners on WRFA 107.9, low power to the people. Thanks for joining us on Tuesdays at 1 o'clock. And if you're in the area shopping throughout the weeks, you can always catch us on the radio. Okay, really cool. And, every once in a while I'll drive through there and I'll listen to myself. It's kind of a spooky thing to do is you hear yourself on the radio. Or people call me up and say, you're on the radio. I go, no, I'm not. I'm driving. No, I parked and I'm listening to it. Anyways, we have a lot of fun here at the studio, and we try to get things everywhere. Get the word out about what's going on in the county. Also, remember, we're on Facebook. You can go over there, like us, and keep up with what's going on. And, of course, we're on Spectrum 1301. You can watch us, rewatch us as much as you like at 2 and 8 every single day throughout the week. And we're going to be on YouTube forever and ever, I guess. Justin tells me we're on show 336. Hard to believe. Okay. Let's see. Want to remind you, I got my little placard here to support. Did I just say support? Support small businesses this holiday season and all year long. Okay, it's easy for us to get hooked up into the big box stuff, which is fine, But we have so many businesses that are struggling right now during this COVID, and they really do need your businesses, whether it's a restaurant, a gift certificate there, it could be something that you buy at any of the local vendors here. So please keep that in mind when you're out there shopping this year. Get on your mask. I have a mask in every single pocket of my clothing. I don't know about you all. I have every color and every design now. It's pretty cool. Put on your mask, go shop. Do what you got to do. Social distance, wash your hands. You can get the job done. So anyways, please support that. I also want to do a shout out to someone that's very close to me, my dear wife. If you see her, congratulate her on putting up with me for 39 years this coming Friday. We've been married that long. We look at each other and go like, how did that happen? 39 years. Been really fun, and we have a great relationship, and we do a lot of nice things together. We have a great family and all that sort of thing. So happy anniversary, Barb. 39 years. Okay, I have some public service announcements, and we'll get to the show here. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, if you have a club announcement or something going on, just email us, and somehow or another, it magically ends up on one of these papers. Now, today, it's pretty light. Some people say, well, how many announcements do you usually have? It's really up to you all. I've gone from one page like this to 13 pages, so it just depends. COVID kind of sucked the life out of the county, though. But nonetheless, let's go to Jamestown with our dear friends at Infinity. They got this really cool thing going on, and according to what I'm reading, that it's all started this past week. So, the Infinity Visual and Performing Arts Center announces a new community arts center for adults. It's called the Pearl City Playhouse. The Pearl City Playhouse, as the name suggests, will be a place to play with clay, but it will be so much more than that. It will be an arts community for everyone, from the novice crafter to the artist with years of experience under their belt. Taking a class at the Pearl City Playhouse will also provide a support for our community's creative youth. A percentage of all Pearl City Playhouse classes will go to support music and arts programming at the Infinity Visual and Performing Arts Center. The Pearl City Playhouse Program Director, Deborah Eck, says the following. Of course, I'm disappointed that we can't open physical doors to the community quite yet. But while we wait, we have put together a series of virtual experiences for artists and crafters of all skill levels. If you're longing for community and want to learn a new stress-busting technique as we approach the busy holiday season, why not try a blackout meditation class? She promises no pressure and no art skills are necessary. Or you can start out with that homemade holiday with their 12 Days of Christmas Ornaments event. The series of short workshops offered over 12 days in December, beginning yesterday, so there's already one down, will include the budget-friendly $5 workshops that use pretty easy, accessible, low-cost materials to craft keepsakes that you'll be proud of to display in your home this holiday season, along with skill-building workshops in floral arrangement. My mom was good at that. Felting, I'm not sure what that is, and quilling, which we learned here on the show is, I think up in that top corner, it looks like quilling maybe. It's paper art, and they bend it and stretch it and spin it and shape it into all kinds of things. These are going to be taught by guest teaching artist Michelle Bango, Debbie Penley, and Michelle Starwalt Woods. According to Deborah, she says, I'm excited to begin building a thriving community of artists and crafters, and I hope you'll join us. Sounds like a lot of fun. To register for upcoming Pearl City Clay House events or to learn more about the house, please go to Pearl City Clay House. Okay, that's all one word, pearlcityclayhouse.org/programming today. All new newsletter signups in November and December will be placed. Oh, I'm sorry, forget that. That's old news. I got to cross that part out. That's all done. Anyways, go to them, or of course you always can contact Infinity at 664-0991, and I'm sure they'll hook you up. So looks like a lot of fun things to do. You know, there's a lot of crafts that have gone by the boards that are probably our grandparents, great-grandparents used to do, and we say, wow, look at those are really cool. But some of it's pretty easy to do, and with just the right techniques and tools, you could do the same. All right, let's move along. We have another slide here. It's a holiday auction. Okay, this is it. Today's the last day. Online holiday auction today, and it's being sponsored by the Friends of the Ripley Library in Ripley, New York, my hometown. They have various items under home decor, holiday decorations, kids' toys, animal baskets, baby items, kitchenware, camping gear, men's items, all kinds of stuff. Now, how do you get there? You simply go to ripleylibrary.org. Okay, one more time, ripleylibrary.org, and there's a button there about the online auction, and I guess you just sign up your name and a couple other things, and you bid on these cool things, and there's all kinds of stuff. I was out there the other day. I'm checking out because I'm one of those last-minute bidders. I like to see what's hot and what's not, and jump in there because there's some really cool things in there. And also, I like to be a little competitive when it comes to bidding. So anyways, that's ending today. Please think about supporting that project, and you can be anywhere in the world to do that. All right, moving along. This particular group gives me more announcements than any other organization. Infinity used to be the most. Now Prevention Works has taken over as number one. I get notices from them every single week. So let's see, we'll talk about this nonetheless later on, but I want to introduce it anyways. So this is slide 17, active parenting classes for the first 5 years. Whew, couldn't we all use that? It says, join us for our upcoming active parenting classes, first 5 years. This is going to be 3 virtual 2-hour sessions via Zoom video communications. Now let me say something about Zoom. If you don't know what Zoom is, you go to your computer, your iPhone, your iPad, you go and look up Zoom, just Google it or whatever. There's an application, you download it on your system. It's real simple, and then once you get that on your computer, then you contact whomever that you want to Zoom with. It's like a live George Jetson. If those of you used to watch the Jetsons, it's like looking at the screen and you can talk to people live, okay? That's what it is. In this particular case, you got to sign up for the Zoom class and you contact Prevention Works and they'll send you a little email, and then you click on this blue set of words and numbers, and magically it all comes up, and you just follow the prompts, and it's really cool. I Zoom like every other day. Okay, what are you going to learn on this thing, and when is it? It's going to be December 9, 15, and 23. It's from 12 to 2, so it's pretty leisurely. A lot of people are at home right now, and as I said, it's going to be on Zoom. That's the actual name of the application, ZOOM. So, what's it going to be about? Build a strong foundation for your children. Your child's first 5 years are so important. Learn how to make the most of them with active parenting, called the first 5 years. In this program, you'll learn the best ways to nurture your child from birth to pre-K, or pre-kindergarten, with the just right combination of freedom and nonviolent discipline. Okay, so here's some topics. What a baby's cry means. Doesn't mean you got to run in the room every time you hear it. Doesn't mean you got to pick the baby up every single time. That all first time parents, they think everything's wrong. As you get to your second and third and fourth kid, it's just like, oh, they're just hungry, oh, they just whatever. We figure out the cries, but for new parents especially, that's really important to learn about that. Ages and stages of development. That's one of my areas of expertise. I love to watch the kids go through sitting up, rolling over, teething. It's normal stuff to think that the baby's doing that, or they're starting. Everybody says, I can't wait till they walk and they talk. And then when they start walking and talking, it's like, oh my God, how do you shut this off? Building a strong bond with your child's growing brain. Using mindfulness to keep your cool. Effective discipline with young children that children can understand, choices and consequences, 6 ways to prepare your child for school success, and much more. Now, the reason why I want you guys to think about taking this class is many of you are at home with your kids. That wasn't the plan a year ago. You have the kids at home, and now the winter months are coming and we're kind of stuck at home. This might be something you really might want to check out, just for your own sanity. Sign up for the parenting classes. You just go to, well, it doesn't have that there on my notes here. You got to give them a call. Give them a call at 780-2721. One more time, 780-2721, or 664-3608. Again, 664-3608, extension 226, and ask for Kathleen Colby. All right, that's it for now. Those are all the announcements. You guys didn't give me a lot to talk about this week. Good for you, but I love talking about what's going on. So we're going to take a little break here, and we're going to be right back. This one's for you.
My new mom and I have a lot in common.
The great outside.
We both love the outdoors.
So shiny.
That's not a flower. We both love geology.
Oh, look. An igneous one.
That's not a rock. And she knows a lot about wildlife.
A labradoodle.
That's not a dog. Hanging out has been kind of fun.
You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Thousands of kids in foster care will take you just as you are.
I love that ad. It's a lot of fun. Parents try to do the best they can, but they're maybe not always expert in all things. Good stuff. Okay. I've been kind of alluding to today's topic that we're going to be discussing. In all seriousness, having raised 4 kids of our own, we know that there's points throughout the year that they're just stressors, and sometimes it's money, sometimes it's health, sometimes it's just the weather and you're cooped up. A lot of things are going on, and sometimes things get a little out of hand. Sometimes we need a little extra help. Sometimes we need some guidance, a voice of reason to talk with us. And sometimes many of us are living in an area that we don't have family support, and we need some support. And Prevention Works has done a lot of that for people, and I know this just because I know these things. And we've had representatives from the organization here over the years. So I want to welcome to the show for the very first time Trish Whetstone, who's the Director of Program Services. And how's that for an introduction?
That's a great introduction. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here. As Doc mentioned, I am the Director of Program Services at Prevention Works. We have offices located in Jamestown and Dunkirk, but essentially what we do is we provide programming, substance use prevention programming throughout the entirety of Chautauqua County.
Wow.
Yeah. So we typically, really our focus is with youth to build healthy coping skills and social emotional learning skills so that youth can make better choices for themselves and ultimately avoid any risky behaviors. It's not just substance use. We used to be called CASIC. We're now called Prevention Works.
Right.
And we really look to prevent any sort of risky behaviors by building these protective factors so that young people and adults can kind of just thrive and have the best life possible.
And so it seems to me a lot of your programs that I announce every week are also surrounding these kids, the parents, the grandparents, aunts, uncles, whomever, to help them make some of those choices.
Absolutely.
And for the adults to understand the kid. We forget what it was like sometimes. It must be a full-time job trying to keep up with the nonsense of the world. And what I mean is like vaping. Nobody talked about vaping more than about 3-4 years ago.
Yeah.
New kinds of drugs that are on the scene that we don't even know about at times. New evil that seems to seep into our society, right?
Yeah.
It's almost it's hard to get your head around it sometimes. Why this happens? I don't even have an answer anymore.
Yeah, I think you kind of hit a really important point there, that these things are ever changing, and one of our jobs at Prevention Works, some of the things that our educators, our staff love to do is consistently research the newest trends, like you mentioned vaping, or different trends with alcohol and what's really happening on a broader scale, but especially within our community, within our school districts. What are we hearing from our parents? What are we hearing from our school administration, because we work a lot with schools? What are we hearing from different organizations as to what are people struggling with the most? And then we kind of are able to customize our programs and services. So I love that we have this flexibility to really meet the needs of the people we work with.
You know, you don't know this, I didn't tell you this earlier, but I'm the town historian in Ripley.
Okay.
Now you might say, what does that got to do with this? This is interesting. So I've been inventorying all the stuff in my department, and I came across a study from 2000, and it was the all about teen and school-age kids, their what's the word I want to use? What their interests are and their concerns, and it was like a survey.
Okay. Yeah.
And it was about alcohol abuse and sexuality and bullying, and so it was sort of like, well, kids, tell us about how you feel about these things.
Yeah.
And so I'm pretty sure Kasich at that time probably had something to do with that in New York State, and you gotta stay on top of these things.
Absolutely.
We don't, you know, I talk to young kids all the time, and you know, we always think, oh, they're just playing on their technology, but they're doing a whole lot of other stuff that we don't even know about, and it's so insidious. It's just in the background, and it's always there. But let's hold that thought for a minute, and let's find out more about Trish. You just came right out of there. You came right out of the chute there. Tell us a little bit about yourself. I mean, people always like to know about my guests and their background, how you got into this area and so forth.
Yeah, absolutely. So I grew up in North Tonawanda in Buffalo area, and I went to SUNY Fredonia for college. I had a fantastic experience. I studied psychology and public health. And actually, Prevention Works, we used to be called Kasich at the time, but they were my internship in college, which turned into full-time employment. And I've been so grateful to really grow with them and grow in my position and really learn a lot. So now I'm still working with them full-time.
So how long have you been with them?
I've been with Prevention Works for about 4.5 years now.
Wow. Good.
Yeah, right out of college. And yeah, so I moved to Mayville in this area because I have some family around here. And it's a fantastic central location because we travel a lot, especially when I was a traveling educator, we would go to schools across the whole county. Mayville's a nice little hub because it's kind of a half hour from everywhere or less. Yeah, and Chautauqua Lake is a school here that I've taught with for the past 3 years or so. So I get to know those students a lot, and I really enjoy that.
Okay, so before the show, I was telling you that when I was growing up, my mom was like the office manager for an agency in Buffalo, which really was the early version of what Kasich was. It used to be called the Buffalo Area Council on Alcoholism, and the focus was on alcoholism. And you mentioned a little bit about that a minute ago. And I think that's what Kasich was at one time. And I'm going to call, and I'll make this up, I don't know if it's even true, but like the Chautauqua Area Council on Alcoholism or something like that.
You're pretty close. It was Chautauqua Alcohol, and it was actually alcoholism, but we changed it to alcohol because, you know, there's sometimes some stigma around addiction and diseases. So we were Chautauqua Alcohol and Substance Abuse Council, or Kasich for short. It was a mouthful. So we changed to Prevention Works, first of all, because it was more succinct, but we also believed that it really better represented what we do, which is the field of prevention. We do intervention, brief intervention services, which I will mention towards the end of our show today. But we're mostly educational, providing awareness, support, and really prevention. We want to kind of prevent substance use or addiction from happening in the first place by educating young people, adults, schools. But we have partnerships with treatment agencies and counseling agencies. But I think we made that distinction because we're not substance use counselors. We don't necessarily treat people for the addiction.
That's a different department, a different organization. Education is really, really important. And like I was alluding to earlier, is, you know, there's so much to learn, and parents need to keep up on it. And that's why I'm happy to share your programming and so forth. Are people partaking of these programs?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah, so a lot of times we have program agreements or contract with schools. So that's where the greatest amount of our programming is within the school districts. We teach students kindergarten through college age.
Oh.
Yeah, and then we will provide training for faculty and staff. So a lot of times the principals or counselors will have us in to teach their teachers. So the teachers are aware of these substance use trends and how to teach these coping skills to their children. And then, as mentioned, we do some other programming for parents, and that's kind of voluntary sometimes. Sometimes they will be court ordered, but the parenting classes or other educational things that we'll do for an agency, for example, you mentioned Infinity, we've done some education for their staff. Those are kind of when people want and need it. And we've been really growing over the last couple years, which is fantastic. I would say it's slowed down a bit since COVID because things are shut down. However, we're still jam-packed in a lot of schools in the
Great.
county.
How many people work at Prevention Works?
At Prevention Works, I think we have 16 staff now.
Are you kidding?
Yeah, so
Wow.
yeah.
I mean, usually these agencies were like a 3-person and one of them was a secretary or something like that.
Yeah, so we, even in the 4.5 years that I've worked with Prevention Works, we have grown so much. We were kind of a staff of 8 to 10 people. Now I am the director of program services, so I supervise 4 educators that go out into the community. We have a couple different departments. We've really been able to have a department for parenting and for kind of helping the teachers out. And then we have a couple staff that help us with our media. So yeah, we've been able to grow, which is really fantastic.
I'm going to put a little bit of a damper on what you just said, and you'll understand where I'm going with that.
Okay.
Isn't it sad that you exist?
You know what? It's. I totally get where you're coming with this. Sometimes we joke that, like, you know what? It would be fantastic if I didn't have to have a job, right? Like, if I was ever put out of a job because drugs didn't exist and everyone, has all the coping skills they need, then that would be fantastic. However, I'm going to say this. I like being in the field of prevention because I like to think that prevention and education awareness will always be needed. Because even if drugs didn't exist, we'd all need to know how to communicate and have healthy relationships and manage our emotions and make good decisions.
It's more than the drug. It's
is.
the behaviors
Exactly.
and attitudes and perceptions, right?
Exactly. Yes.
See, I could work for you guys.
Yeah, you totally could. You get it.
Okay, now I'm going to ask you a loaded question, and
Okay.
and I just read about this last night because I'm just not sure where I stand on this.
Okay.
And I saw that in Congress they just made marijuana a non, what was the word I want to say? They're trying to make it legal, I guess is the
Right.
easiest way to say
Yeah.
it.
Yep.
That seems to run in the face of what maybe you're doing. On the other hand, I've talked to a number of people that say, it's medical. It can be used appropriately by adults, and it's this and this and this, and so there's just all these schools of thought,
Yeah.
and growing up, drugs were evil, and marijuana was in that group, and I know a lot of people that use marijuana. They're good people. They're fine. I know other people have used it and went on to horrible life because they got into other drugs.
Yeah.
And I suppose it's like alcohol or cigarettes or
Yeah.
whatever. It just depends. But so decriminalizing marijuana, what would be Prevention Works thinking? Now maybe
Yeah.
you speak for yourself rather than the agency, however you want to approach
Okay.
that.
Yeah. I first of all, I love this question. I will preface it by saying it's a little bit loaded. I could probably talk for 2 hours on this topic.
We got 29 minutes.
29 minutes. I'll try and keep it a little bit succinct here. But essentially, when it comes to marijuana, there is recreational marijuana, which people use typically to get high for that aspect of, like, think of drinking alcohol to get drunk. Okay, I'll address that in a second. Then there is medicinal forms of marijuana,
Right.
and the way that I like to explain it to people is that there's different components of this plant. I'm going to use another drug as an example. The coca plant creates cocaine and chocolate and coffee. They come from the same exact plant. So caffeine and you have cocaine. Caffeine is a drug. Technically, people can be addicted to coffee, but it's
I don't know anybody that's like that.
But it's
Don't talk to me. I haven't had my coffee yet.
yeah,
Okay.
exactly. And it can have some implications, definitely not like entirely safe for people who have heart conditions or certain things, absolutely. Some people just don't do well with caffeine when they have anxiety, but it's pretty safe. Cocaine, on the other hand, not very safe. When we talk about marijuana, there is CBD or cannabidiol, which is typically the component that has medicinal use for management of seizures, maybe management of pain, maybe some research showing it manages anxiety.
Glaucoma, I understand.
Yeah, and things of that nature. What I would say about that is that's legitimate. There are some uses there for sure. We do need more research. When you see CBD being pushed as like, it can help with your toe jam and your hair and this and that, like,
Yes, I have seen those
that's
things.
probably not legitimate. There's not enough research yet. So I just tell people to take caution with that. We should have like decriminalization and more regulation around that. So if people need it, they can get it from a reputable provider and not buying like CBD infused honey, because we don't always know how pure it is.
Know your sources.
Know your sources, exactly. And so I would say that the push for this, the biggest part with the medicinal part is we've made it seem like it's almost way too safe and it's too readily available, and certainly it can have uses. People just need to be smart about how and where they get it and become educated on it. The other component of marijuana is THC or tetrahydrocannabinol, and that is the part that causes a high, that is very psychoactive, that changes the way the brain works. I'm going to use this kind of coinciding with alcohol, and we do have a slide here on alcohol in the teenage brain, if we could get that up, because I can use this to explain THC as well.
Let's do it,
Yeah, essentially what happens is our brain does not fully develop until we're in our mid-20s. So that's why the drinking age is 21. We recently changed our age for tobacco use and nicotine to 21.
Okay.
And so our brain is still under construction, in our teenage years and even our early 20s. The last part of our brain to develop is that frontal lobe, which helps us make good decisions. So whenever we use any psychoactive substance, of course here I have alcohol, we can also talk about marijuana in the recreational form that has THC. It can affect the healthy development of that part of the brain so that it kind of permanently can damage that ability for young people to control their impulses, make good decisions, control their emotions.
They're having enough trouble with it to begin with. Now you're going to add that to it, right?
Now you have a substance that is changing your emotionality, changing this logical part of your brain. And so that has short-term consequences, meaning, young people will be affected by substances in a more severe way than adults, but also the long-term implication is it can kind of upset the wiring of this brain, and people can have long-term implications mentally, issues with cognition. And also the other huge part of this is that we know that addictions are much more common in young people. So 96% of alcoholism or addiction to alcohol begins before the age of 18.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so most people who become addicted to alcohol, there was some sort of prefacing happening when their brain was starting to develop. They were trying to use alcohol to cope or for whatever reason, and they become more likely to be dependent on it and use it. So we know if we can prevent people from using any substance, this goes for marijuana, alcohol, until they're in the very least older. And I guess what I'll say is whether it's legal or not legal, you did mention that marijuana, it's kind of like in the realm of alcohol and cigarettes at this point. What my thought on is if it becomes legalized, we still need education around it. We still need to be careful because of its addictive potential. Marijuana is addictive, like alcohol and nicotine. And those legal drugs aren't necessarily completely safe. We know that tobacco actually kills more people than any other drug.
It's the most addictive drug
and it's the most addictive drug there is, absolutely.
People still are shocked when I tell them that. They go, no, it's not.
Yeah, no,
yes, it is.
You are absolutely right. And that's what I tell people, like if you are a smoker and you've quit, like that is actually huge. And when we're talking about vaping devices with nicotine that kids are using, you guys are messing around with really some very addictive substances here with nicotine. And so really just being cautious about that, recognizing that. And so to kind of wrap up your question about decriminalization, I do believe this is mostly prevention work standpoint, but also I guess mine, is that decriminalization is important. We shouldn't necessarily just lock people up for this, but decriminalization does not have to mean complete legalization and free, like handing out of marijuana and that it's super accessible like alcohol is. We can have a middle ground. where we can have more research on medical use of marijuana to be handed out to people kind of in a safe way. And then also, if it does become recreational, we wouldn't necessarily lock people up for alcohol, but we still want to provide people with that knowledge on what could happen. We still are always, I really came here today to talk about alcohol and how even though that's been a legal drug for hundreds of years, we really
Except during Prohibition.
I was just going to say that. I'm like, except during Prohibition.
There was that little blip in history.
That little blip in history. We still need to be safe with it, I guess, regardless.
Right.
Regardless.
I'm sitting here and I'm thinking of my teen years, and and I'm sure everybody that's watching right now, they either know what I'm talking about or their kids have done this. They sneak a beer, they get into whatever. But I don't ever remember anybody sitting us down as a group, other than, scaring the bejeebers out of us about drugs. But we really didn't talk about alcohol as a rule. We never, ever talked about that part of the brain. Let me see if I can say it correctly, the amygdala.
You did good, amygdala.
Thank you. I practiced that before the show.
Yes.
The amygdala,
Yep.
that is the part of the brain in a young, and it's not even in the early years. It's like from a certain age to a certain age. So like from like 14 or 12,
about
12 maybe?
12 when we're kind of in those preteen years. The amygdala, you couldn't see it on the slide there, but it's kind of in the middle of our
Right.
brain. It controls our emotions, our fear, our anger, our reactions to things. And what happens is we kind of have this part of this brain rapidly developing when we're around 13.
It swells up, if I remember
it swells up.
Right.
And so emotional reactions for young people legitimately will be more intense than adults because that part of the brain's not fully developed. You also have a fully developed risk part of your brain that wants to seek risky behaviors and try new things. But then we don't have a fully developed frontal lobe, which helps us control our impulses and make good decisions. So sometimes I tell youth, like, not that I want you to use this as an excuse at home, but it's kind of not necessarily your fault. Your brain is in some ways working against you. And recognize when you use anything that changes the way your brain works, a drug, it's going to make this even more intensified, even harder to deal with, managing our emotions and making good decisions.
So where I'm going with this is that we never had this talk about the amygdala.
Yeah.
And, and I would like to think about 99% of the people that are sitting in front of this camera right now, or people that you talk to, they're interested in what we're talking about. They're listening, and if we knew some of this stuff early on, maybe we would have made different choices. Maybe parents wouldn't have been so easy in my day to say, oh, it's just a beer, he's 15, 16, he can handle it, or, and I'm being general now. I'm not trying to pick on anybody in particular, but I mean, we get into this kind of mode of thinking that it's not going to hurt anybody.
Yeah.
But when we introduce kids to certain things and we don't know how it physically affects someone because we're not knowledgeable. So those of you who are watching right now, we just blew it for you. You have no excuse, right?
Well, I love that you're bringing this up. This is exactly, that was like a perfect segue into what I was going to say, is that...
We haven't met before, have we?
We have not. We have not. That was really smooth. Yeah, so like you mentioned, you found some records in your
Yeah,
school.
it was a survey of kids.
Surveys, and we do those every 2 years in Chautauqua County. It's called the Pride Survey, and we have students in all school districts answer questions on their thoughts, their perceptions on substances, and kind of their use, if they've used. So essentially, what we did in our last Pride survey is we asked kids, if you drank alcohol before, where did you get it? And over 50% of 7th through 12th graders said they got it at home.
Yeah.
Kids are not necessarily getting fake IDs as much as we think. They're getting it from their parents, they're getting it from their family members. And over 30% of 11th and 12th graders, those upperclassmen that we think are close enough, right, got alcohol with parents' permission. Yeah. So what you were describing is a perception of harm that's really low. We don't think alcohol's that dangerous of a drug because it's so prevalent and because it is so common. That doesn't mean there's not risk involved for absolutely anybody, but especially young people. And I think what's happening during this time is people are using alcohol to cope. We've often used alcohol to kind of fill in voids, like things are boring, let's drink, or things are stressful, let's
Kick
drink.
back a little beer. It's just football. You know, we associate things.
We're at home, we're watching football games, we're kind of just spending more time inside, so we're like, let's drink. But what that provides, especially for young people, is this thought that like it's so common, it must not have that much of an effect on me. And you were very right too when people said most people are interested in this. I'm interested in substances. That's why I enjoy teaching this. Young people, it's okay to have an interest, but that does not necessarily mean that you have to experiment. You can talk to people about it. Like, what's your experiment? You can watch documentaries. You can learn about the drug without having to use it. But we're at a point right now where it's more accessible to kids and people than ever before. People can now get alcohol in takeout with a lot of the takeout, which we never could get before. So it's more accessible, and people might have even more of a reason to want to use to cope.
Let's hold that thought. We have a caller.
Okay.
Good morning, caller.
Good morning, Doc. Good morning, Trish. This is Linda Spalding with the Senior Employment Program. Trish, your presentation is fascinating.
Thank you.
I don't want to take any time away from you. The things that you were saying are so great, but could I just mention something, Doc? You talked about the legalization of marijuana,
Right, that's
the federal.
Yeah.
The problem before, I know from experiences with people I know, quite a few years ago, people wanted to get Marinol for terminally ill people because it would relieve pain and also make their breathing easier and increase their appetite. And this was a really particularly helpful substance for people with emphysema. But because it wasn't legal, you couldn't get it. And I think it's far better than the opioids or Xanax that they prescribe for terminally ill people. And what you mentioned, Trish, is about, regulations, but legalization, because there are very good uses for it, I believe, from the situations that I'm aware of.
I agree, Lynn. I've seen this more and more and more, and you know, and the medical field seems to be a little bit more accepting of herbal things, you know, and this would fall in that category. And like Trish was saying, there's certain parts of plants and other things that if it's used correctly, it can be really beneficial. So yeah.
And what you were mentioning is Marinol has been the one FDA-approved, federally approved medicinal form of marijuana. And it does all the things that you said, and there is more regulation around that. So that's how we know that this could be safely used by people, because there's been a lot of research around it. I think the alternative side of that is that sometimes there's this push for things that there is not enough research around just yet. So I think it's finding a really delicate balance, like you said, legalizing and allowing access for things like this that are super necessary and could really be beneficial, while being really careful with these other components that could affect the healthy development of the brain, being aware of that. And I think it is just a little bit tough because people aren't necessarily on the same page. They don't know all these things. They are either completely against it or completely for it. And it is a complex issue. You need to think about all these different things, these different aspects
talk it
of
through.
it. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you, Trish. I also want to mention that the Senior Employment Program is available for people who are interested in getting back to work, and they can contact me at the Office for the Aging at 753-4471 or my direct line, 753-4856. You were talking about addictions, and I just saw Facebook come up. Did you know that people are addicted to Facebook?
Oh, absolutely.
Yep.
Go to a restaurant.
People, you can be addicted, and I actually love that. You can be addicted to things so much more than substances. People can be addicted to technology. People can be addicted to food. People can be addicted to behaviors. Absolutely. And I think, you know, a lot of times, I guess to kind of transition to what we'll talk about next, is because we don't have another way to cope with things, so we might use Facebook to numb out, to kind of escape from the world. So really we want to focus on, no matter what is happening, if you're addicted to drugs or you have that tendency, or it's social media, to have healthier coping skills, better ways to kind of manage use your time and just in a healthier way.
Lynn, we go to a restaurant every once in a while, and if it's a lightly lit room, all you see are these blue-white faces. Everybody's sitting there looking at their phones instead of talking, and so we try to put the phones away. But you're right, how many times do you pick up that phone or go to that computer every day? I mean, it's a lot.
Yeah, I don't. When I go out for dinner with someone, I'm insulted if they pull up their Facebook page or their cell phone. What are they going out for? Why don't they just stay home and stay on their phone?
It's tough.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, have a wonderful weekend and week.
Lynn, thanks for calling in and your perspective on things as well. And just before we leave, just for folks that are listening, what are positions, the type of positions you're filling? The bus aides and who else?
Well, we're always looking for bus aides and also people in the home health and health industry.
Okay.
Those two they're around here. These are positions that are used. It's called a demand occupation.
Okay.
There's a high demand for it in Chautauqua County.
All right, super. All right, well, we'll talk to you next time, eh?
Okay, thank you. Have a great week.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for calling. Bye-bye. Interesting perspective on that, too.
Absolutely. I appreciate that.
Yeah. So, one more question, and then I'll let you go on whatever you want to talk about.
Okay.
But, and this is not necessarily a loaded question, but it's a difficult question.
Okay.
And it goes right along what we were saying about legalization and so forth. So I get the idea of decriminalizing it because we don't need to be throwing people into jail for having a joint or whatever, and that's all gone by the boards. Now they give you an appearance ticket or whatever. I mean, so we're trying to sort that out as a society, I understand. But along the way, we used to hear about gateway drugs.
Yeah.
And I'm going to throw cigarettes in there to a degree, and alcoholism, but where does marijuana fall in that nowadays?
That's such a good question. That's such a good question because that's another one that I love. It's so funny because that was a term thrown around a lot.
Absolutely.
I think a couple things that you mentioned that I do want to address how prevention works and the field of prevention is different now is that we don't like to use scare tactics. Research shows that just doesn't work. People need to be empowered by knowledge and skills. Like, okay, I'm scared of a drug, but what do I do instead, right? So I think for a while, gateway drug was used as a scare tactic. Like, don't do that or you will get addicted to heroin, cocaine.
Cool. All right, I get that immediately. I understand what you're saying.
So for a while, like the field, they're like, don't use the term gateway drug. Now it's back and we can use it because essentially this is what it means. Most people do not wake up one day addicted to heroin or cocaine. Typically, they started with a substance that was more readily available, that was maybe lighter in a way, it didn't affect them so much. We're talking about nicotine, alcohol, maybe marijuana. They all have really strong health implications mentally. They are still addictive, but they don't typically affect us physically so much like, heroin or cocaine. So people typically start with those. And there is some research with rats showing that if we give them like a substance like nicotine or marijuana or alcohol, they kind of become primed for this addictive, they kind of seek those things. Their brain is no longer saying, okay, I need food, water, and shelter to survive. They're kind of saying, now I'm kind of thinking my drug is really important. I'm going to want to use it more and more. So it can kind of prime the brain for just seeking outside like stimulation in a way. So we know there's some science showing that then that could prime the brain for other addictions. And then just the other part of it, there is the social aspect of if we're going to be hanging around with people who are using any sort of drugs, they're drinking more, they use marijuana more, they're smoking, there just might be more likely of a chance to be other drugs present in those situations. And then if you're already kind of addicted and you're using alcohol or marijuana to cope, you might then make the choice to use another drug. It's not necessarily like you use marijuana and you'll definitely get addicted to heroin.
So you could just stay with one particular thing
Absolutely.
for all your life, right?
Absolutely. Some people are, we said nicotine's the most addictive drug, but some people are social smokers in their whole life and they're not really addicted to it and they just do it around other people. So every body is different, every person's physiology, their genetics are different, and that will affect how drugs affect them. But I would say basically the main point with gateway drug is that be aware if you're the kind of person who is affected by drugs. You don't know how it's going to affect you. You don't know if it is going to lead to an addiction or lead to you seeking other substances.
And really, when I'm sitting here thinking about my mom, whenever she got a new pill, she would read all the side effects. Well, a lot of stuff doesn't come with a label, right?
Exactly. And I think that we don't get the label with alcohol. Right. Nicotine just started to have that, but with vaping devices, they don't have to have the same regulations. Yeah. They're not approved by the FDA like cigarettes are. That's the other main point with marijuana. Even forms that are not as dangerous like CBDs, they don't have labels, so people are using it a lot more than they should. Maybe they just need a couple tinctures of that oil a day, but people are like, I'm going to use a ton.
Yeah, 5 drops is better. If one is required, 5 would be really good. Yeah.
There's always consumer error there. Yeah. That we can say it's perfectly safe if you use this amount, but some people could just say, I'm going to use a ton more because I want to get better quicker.
The question came through my earpiece about. And I think you've hinted at it, and maybe you've answered in an indirect way, but the psychological effects. I mean, where does that fall in all this?
Yeah, I love that. So there's 2 types of addiction, physiological or physical.
So your body's craving it.
Your body's craving it. Like you just did, we're going to kind of get frustration, we'll have physical cravings for it. Then there's psychological addiction, where we just feel depressed or anxious without it. And that's incredibly common with alcohol. It's incredibly common with marijuana, in that people... the brain then becomes used to the only way that I can get dopamine, a rush of my feel-good neurotransmitter, is now with my drug. So without it, I'm gonna feel depressed and anxious. It's starting to change the brain chemistry, so we feel like we need it more. So what I tell people to look out for with this is, if you drink a glass of wine to relax every now and again, spend time with your family, celebrate, and you can shut it off there, then that's fine. You're probably not developing a psychological addiction. But if you feel like it's one of the only thing that brings you a pick-me-up, oftentimes I get from young people that I work with it's the only thing that helps me cope with my anxiety, then that is unfortunately a sign that you are developing a psychological addiction. If things like deep breathing, talking to people, running, those things that used to help you cope no longer work anymore, that's a sign the drug has affected and changed the brain.
Okay, fair enough. All right, we're getting down in time. We still have about just a little less than 7 minutes. We haven't touched on a bunch of things, and we don't have to do anything, but I want to give the opportunity to talk about what you want to talk about. You have some slides here now.
I do,
so let's do that, okay?
Thank you. If we could bring up the next slide on some coping resources. These are local. These are some resources that we can provide here with Prevention Works. So you'll see our Facebook page. Of course, we talked about maybe we need a break from media, but I say if you're going to tune into media...
No, you keep it coming, because I'm fully behind you guys.
Tune into positive media like this show. On our Facebook page, we provide a lot of education, information on what's going on. We provide alternatives to coping skills. Myself and my coworker Alex Rodriguez create and produce our own podcast called PrevPod. It's a Prevention Works podcast. You can get that on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, anywhere you kind of listen to podcasts. And we go over different coping skills. We go over questions like addiction and, what's safer, alcohol, marijuana, tobacco. So if you liked what you were hearing today, PrevPod, we have a lot more coming. We are actually live streaming our finale on our Facebook page there this coming Tuesday, December 8th, I believe. We're going to be doing it on our Facebook, so you can tune into that. But otherwise, we have a season of PrevPod. And I just wanted to note, the New York Hope Project has a lot of amazing resources for coping with COVID that are so much more healthy, that are going to be more effective and serve you better than using substances.
All right, now we have people listening that can't see this, so how about you just slowly give these addresses to folks.
Okay, www.facebook.com/preventionworks.us. Preventionworks.us is also just our website in which you can find these.
Okay.
We have anchor.fm/PrevPod. PrevPod is just spelled PREVPOD. You can just search or Google PrevPod in any podcast app and you can find that.
Cool.
And then NewYorkProjectHope.org, that is just nyprojecthope.org, has a lot of resources for coping.
Beautiful. I mean, again, going back to my growing up, you had somebody would come in maybe once a year, talk to the high school class. That was it. That was your drug education. Now you've got people talking to you on live, and you know, people can do this in the privacy of their homes and watch this stuff, or watch it over and over and over again. That's super. All right, what else we got? Let's bring up the next slide.
Yeah, the next slide, I would like to tell a little bit about our programs here. Teen Intervene is one of our brief intervention services. So this is for young people or even adults, mild to moderately using substances or, you know, partaking in risky behavior like bullying. And what we do is we provide the education so they can be aware of the substances, how they affect the body. We provide coping skills and, you know, assertiveness skills, how to stand up for ourselves, so that we can kind of prevent addiction from forming. We then will make referrals to treatment, mental health counseling if needed. This is to kind of intervene, it's called Teen Intervene, before an addiction kind of develops. And this is a service that we do provide in person at our offices. Right now we're mostly doing telehealth services via Zoom, like you mentioned, with our parenting classes.
Okay, sure.
And just another note on this isn't on the slide, but we also provide these one-on-one sessions for children who live in a chemically dependent home. Maybe they have a family member who is suffering from addiction, and we know it affects the child. So we tell the child it's not their fault, they didn't cause it, but they can cope with it. And we give them appropriate education on how that's changing their loved one, and we help them work through that. So whether people are using substances or they know someone, we provide that first level of education and support.
You know, it's like secondary smoke. You may not smoke, but you have problems with it.
Exactly.
And same with addiction. There's rings of how people are affected. So that's really good. All right, and so is there a charge for any of this stuff?
So no, typically if it's a referral made by a parent or a family member, it's completely free of charge. It's typically 3 to 5 sessions. It's not necessarily super long term. We'll then make an appropriate referral to counseling if needed. And then we have some contracts with schools in which they pay a small fee, and we can work with unlimited number of students throughout their year. But most people listening in, if you contact us, it is a free service, which is fantastic.
Well, but you know, a lot of people say, well, I'm not telling you anything because everybody's going to know about all this. How's that work?
Oh, it's completely confidential. I'm so glad that you brought that up. We are held by HIPAA laws, so everything is completely confidential, and we always have to fill out a form if they want me to talk to anybody, whether it's their parent or a school member. So when I work with the child, we actually, won't tell all their secrets to the school or the parent. It is entirely confidential, and I'm so glad you asked that. Yeah.
Okay, do we have another slide? Let's keep moving. Here we go.
Yeah.
Okay,
this is our contact information here.
Okay.
So we actually recently, like last week, moved offices. We are now on 186 Lakeshore Drive in Dunkirk. Our phone number for our Dunkirk office is 716-366-4623, and our Jamestown office will actually be moving next week to 509 North Main Street in Jamestown. It's across from the 7-Eleven there.
Okay, I know where it is.
Yeah, we used to be on 3rd Street, but we're packing up our boxes as we speak. And our phone number for Jamestown is 716-664-3608.
Okay, 45 seconds left to the show.
Okay.
What would you like to tell folks? Look right at the camera, tell them whatever you want.
I would just like to say that if you're struggling, if you're feeling isolated during this time, if you're worried about how to cope and how to manage, please do reach out to us at Prevention Works. We can set you up with some skills so that you're not alone during this time, and know that there are plenty of things that you can do to better manage.
The holiday season is tough enough.
It is.
It brings back memories of past folks that have moved on, whatever. I just find it's a really hard time for a lot of folks, including myself.
Yeah.
You know, and so folks, reach out. Don't be afraid. That's why we talk about these things here on Chautauqua Sunrise. Trish, thanks so much for joining me today. This has been really inspiring to me personally, and makes me want to continue to do what I do here at the show and provide these educational opportunities. So good on you all, and keep sending me all your announcements. Folks, there's a way to cope with all this, and check these folks out. Prevention Works. I'm Doc Hamels. You've been watching Chautauqua Sunrise. Trish Whetstone, who's the director of the program services at Prevention Works, has been my guest. I'll get it out. And we'll see you all next week.
Thanks right for having me.
You bet. On Spectrum 1301. And have a great weekend. And hopefully we stay snow-free for another week. Take care now. Bye now.